Hello, fellow working class comrades, and welcome to another edition of Ralphie the Revolutionary. I'm your host, Ralphie the Revolutionary, and today I want to talk about how the billionaire class is monopolizing the flow of information. We've been seeing this for years and years with how 5 or 6 media companies have basically monopolized the media. You can see it with this graphic. I see it going around social media a lot these days. As we know, billionaires like Jeff Bezos own the Washington Post. You can just buy a mainstream newspaper for $250 million in unfettered, unregulated capitalism. And then obviously, as we all know, billionaires like Mark Zuckerberg own social media monopolies like Facebook and Instagram. Meanwhile, I'm here on Twitch today, which is owned by Amazon, which is also owned by Jeff Bezos. So he owns the Washington Post and he owns Twitch. Meanwhile, Google owns YouTube. And now it's being reported that billionaire Elon Musk is buying Twitter. Do we really want a handful of greedy billionaires and big corporate monopolies and elites controlling the flow of information? I mean, do we really trust Elon Musk to not manufacture consent and not spread bourgeoisie propaganda? According to the Huffington Post, Elon Musk is already talking about how he's going to make the working class pay to shoot tweets. And then according to the Daily Mail, I guess Elon Musk is planning to fire over 1,000 members of the working class, also reporting that he's going to charge the working class to spread information. If anything, information should be controlled democratically. Now, a lot of neoliberal bootlickers like to bring up the fact that Elon Musk is paying $45 billion for Twitter, so therefore it's his private property. And Elon Musk can do whatever he wants with his private property. Well, first off, if you've read the brilliant thinker Karl Marx, who said in Communist Manifesto that private property should be abolished. So spare me this hogwash about my private property when private property is not fair. Secondly, do we really want billionaires like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg to monopolize speech? This is a problem with unfettered capitalism. The super, mega, ultra wealthy can easily just buy up everything in existence. And that's not good. That's not good. A fair and just society would have seized the means of production from Twitter and billionaires like Jack Dorsey a long time ago, and had the working class democratically decide how to moderate content and speech. I know some of you... Actually, I need a break. You can thank unions and the working class for a quick soda break. Happy May Day, everyone. Now, some of you who may have had some of your consent already manufactured. You know who you are. You might be thinking right now, but what about my free speech? What about my free speech? Is democratically moderating content for stuff like disinformation and hate speech compatible with free speech? And no, it's not compatible with free speech, which is why I am not an advocate for free speech. Free speech is dangerous. Just look at America today and all of the destruction that has come as a consequence of my free speech. People are allowed to spread disinformation. They're allowed to spread hate speech. People are allowed to play violent video games and watch booby movies. The only speech that should be allowed is speech that does not harm society or the working class. Which is why I actually really like this idea of a disinformation governance board that a lot of people have been talking about lately. I guess this is the lady that's going to oversee the disinformation governance board.
Laundering is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound precocious by saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet. So disinformation's origins are slightly less atrocious. It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. When Rudy Giuliani shared bad intel from Ukraine, or when TikTok influencers say COVID can cause pain. They're laundering disinfo and we really should take note and not support their lies with our wallet, voice or vote. Oh, information laundering is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound precocious by saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet. So disinformation's origin seems slightly less atrocious.
Now, I would prefer a voice of the working class be in charge of monitoring disinformation, especially with all this disinformation that's out there that's put out by disinformation dealers like neoliberal bootlickers who try to blame current economic troubles like inflation. We should really just call it what it is: price gouging, and neoliberal bootlickers and other disinformation dealers trying to spread disinformation saying all the inflation is because of stuff like printing money and supply chain issues and import taxes, when really it's greedy corporations raising prices. It was reported the other day on NBC News that Turkey, the country of Turkey, is seeing a 70% increase in inflation. And that's probably because Turkey just has a lot of greedy corporations raising prices. Yeah. And a lot of people also talking about Venezuela and how they have a hyperinflation. Venezuela has crazy inflation for the last decade, and disinformation dealers try to make you think it's because of socialism, when actually Nicolas Maduro has been trying to help the poor and the working class by giving them enough money to live a dignified life. And it was the corporations and greedy businesses in Venezuela who exploited Nicolas Maduro's benevolence by raising prices. And that's not fair. There's also a lot of talk right now about how comedians are getting attacked and assaulted while on stage, like Chris Rock at the Oscars and now Dave Chappelle at the Hollywood Bowl. Imagine if we as a society came together to democratically establish a guideline of what comedians are allowed and not allowed to make jokes about. That way they could have guidelines about stuff like hate speech. Then comedians like Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock and others would know exactly what to say and what not to say to avoid triggering and offending their audience. I mean, think about it. The comedians, they know what to joke about. The audiences don't get offended. The comedians don't get assaulted. It sounds like everybody wins in this situation. In fact, working class countries like Cuba are already doing stuff like this, according to Reuters. This is from last August. You can see in the headline, New Cuban Decree Tightens Controls on Social Media by Sarah Marsh. And it talks about how the legislation bans the spread of false news or messages and content deemed offensive. Yeah, this sounds pretty good to me. And why does everyone even care about free speech anyway? What, because the founding fathers drafted the First Amendment? Yeah, that was like, what, 230 years ago? I mean, that was a long time ago, you guys. And a lot of these founding fathers, they owned slaves. I mean, why are we still looking to the founding fathers for guidance and wisdom on modern political issues? You know what else can be really dangerous is advertising. For those who don't know, advertising is basically propaganda put out by greedy corporations to make a profit. Now, many advertisements, like iPhone commercials, they seem rather innocent. A company like Apple tries to sell you a fancy iPhone with these fun commercials. Of course, they leave out the stuff about all of the workers that were exploited to make your precious iPhone. But then what about companies like Camel cigarettes, who for years used a marketing campaign based on this character named Joe Camel, trying to make Joe Camel look cool. I mean, look at him. He looks cool. He drives a fancy car. He's with beautiful women. Kind of trying to appeal to you. If this is the lifestyle you want, you know how you get it is you smoke some Camel cigarettes. Yeah, a lot of ads like this, making Joe Camel look all cool like James Bond, hanging out on islands, wearing a tuxedo in a hot sunny weather on a beach, really. I guess that brings in the beautiful ladies. Yeah, Joe Cool. He turned 75 and he's still smoking, driving fancy cars. Yeah, you want to have fun? You smoke cigarettes. I mean, just look at Joe Camel. I mean, he knows how to play the piano. I guess smoking cigarettes turns you into a world-class musician, like an Elton John or a Billy Joel. That's probably how they got good at playing music, is by smoking some Camel cigarettes. That's what makes you cool, I guess. And this is also what a few corporate executives at greedy cigarette companies can make millions and millions of dollars selling you a product that might eventually put you in the hospital, thereby enriching their for-profit healthcare system. Profit. Now, Joe Camel was eventually dropped after a few lawsuits were filed, along with some public backlash. But imagine how many people got addicted to cigarettes because they saw a Joe Camel ad. This is why free speech is dangerous. I mean, can we really expect people to think rationally when they're exposed to advertisements? People already have too much on their minds, so when they get bombarded with Joe Camel, they can't help but think, wow, that's what will turn my life around, is smoking a Camel cigarette. And that's not good. That's not good. This is why we need to democratically control speech. Because people cannot think for themselves. People are too impressionable and are vulnerable to stuff like hate speech and disinformation and advertisements, especially when speech is controlled by the billionaires and big corporations and the top 1%. So if you're still one of these free speech advocates, then what you're really advocating against is the working class.